Okay, real quick before this video starts. So this list is just based off my personal experience. These are just things that I think would have helped me 5 or 6 years ago, and I'm hoping that they might help someone who's just thinking about getting started in film photography now. Many of you may have different ideas, different thoughts, and may disagree with a lot of the things on this list. Totally understandable. If you do have different thoughts or ideas or tips, leave them in the comments and turn those thoughts into something constructive for people who are coming here to watch this video to learn how to get into film or get some ideas on how to get into film photography. So turn those thoughts into tips and put those in the comments, and that person watching the video can get some ideas from the video itself and then read the comments for more tips. Have you been thinking about trying film photography? Well, here are 10 tips, thoughts, and other things that might help you get started. Number 1, start with just one 35mm camera and one lens. Where you get this camera depends on your situation. Ask your family or friends and see if they have an old film camera laying around in the garage or a closet somewhere. Or try online marketplaces like Facebook Marketplace, Letgo, OfferUp. The most reliable place to check are places like KEH and usephotoPro.com. They always have a collection of used film cameras to choose from, and usually get a warranty along with them. Now, which camera do you choose? Well, that depends on a lot of factors. First, consider what you might be used to already. If you have a DSLR, then that might give you a hint of where you should go from there. If you shoot Nikon already, consider Nikon. If you shoot Canon, consider Canon. If you're starting from zero, then there's a plethora of options. It doesn't really matter which camera you start with, but I do suggest you get a camera that you can operate fully manually and that has a working light meter. Getting a camera that you can operate manually makes you learn all the aspects of photography that you're going to need to learn to be able to create what you want to create. Depending on automatic features of the cameras is fine, but you should learn the exposure triangle and how aperture, shutter speed, and the ISO of your film affect the exposure of your picture. The light meter isn't completely necessary, but a built-in working light meter can come in really handy when you're first learning. I still use them constantly in the film cameras I shoot with. Number 2, start with black and white film. There are 2 big reasons for this. It's generally cheaper, and it makes you concentrate on exposure, contrast, luminance, and those things first before you have to worry about the color elements of the image. So get used to shooting black and white, and then add color to your workflow. Or stick with shooting black and white like I do most of the time. Number 3, start with 400 speed film. The ISO or ASA speed of your film will let you know how sensitive to light that film is. The higher the number, the more sensitive to light the film is. I suggest starting at 400 for 2 big reasons. It's accessible and it's versatile. You can shoot some situations inside with it and a lot of situations outside with it. I get my film through freestylephoto.com as well as my local camera store, B&C Camera. But if you have a local camera store, start there. If not, go online and look at Freestyle Photo or other online resources that sell film and order some rolls from there. Number 4, start by sending your film out to be processed. After you shot your film, the next step is to develop it or process that film. I develop my own black and white film at home now, but I didn't start out that way. I suggest that you start out by at least sending your first couple rolls out to be processed. This will give you confidence that you're making progress. You'll receive back from the lab some really nice negatives that they've professionally developed, and maybe even prints and scans if you decided to order that. Worrying about developing film when you're first learning all the other aspects of it might be too much to take on. So pick a lab online. I have labs on the West Coast I use, like Darkroom Lab and Richard Photo Lab, that do great work. But I'm sure you have labs closer to your area that will do awesome work as well. Number 5, plan your storage method for your negatives. It's not going to take you long to build up a library of film negatives. You're going to want a secure, safe, and clean storage system for those. I use pretty standard 3-ring notebooks and put my negatives in these print file sleeves. When you're first starting out, one binder with all your negatives works fine. As you build more of a library, then you can decide what organizational method might work best for you. My current system consists of a folder for my landscape, a folder for my cityscape, and a folder for my family and personal pictures. You'll thank yourself later for starting out with a good, clean, organized system for your negatives. Number 6, concentrate on learning one aspect of the film photography process at a time. What do I mean by this? Well, when you're first starting out, depending on your experience with photography, you might be learning a new camera system, how a certain film stock reacts, if you decide to learn how to develop the film, how to scan the film. All these aspects of film photography can be cause for frustration and be cause for problems in your negatives at one aspect or another. So it's best to focus on one aspect at a time. So right off the bat, it's learning how to work your camera and lens to get a properly exposed negative. Once you feel comfortable with that, then you can try other cameras, other formats. Go from 35 to medium format. Start developing your own film. Start printing your own film, or scan it and digitize it. But start with one aspect at a time and don't overwhelm yourself. Number 7, keep cost in mind. I'm not going to say a blanket statement that film is cheaper than digital or it's more expensive than digital. I can give you examples of both. So what are some of the costs? You have the cost of the camera, the lens, the film stock, the processing for the film stock, or the chemicals if you're processing yourself, the scanning equipment, the printing costs, whether that's from a lab or a printer that you are going to buy and have in your home, or the equipment to print in the darkroom. Storage costs, whether that's hard drive storage or actual sleeves and binders to store your negatives. All of these things and more contribute to cost. Like I said, there's no blanket statement to say that film is cheaper than digital or film is more expensive than digital. Just keep cost in mind. This all depends on your workflow, which leads me right into number 8. Number 8, there is no right approach to workflow. There's no film photography workflow that makes you an official film photographer. We're in a great space nowadays where we can have hybrid systems, or you could still be a complete film photographer from beginning to end. When I got back into film photography a few years ago, I started with a hybrid system. I got a camera and lens, shot some film, sent it to a lab, and had them develop it and scan it, and they sent me back the negatives, prints, as well as the scans. That's super convenient because I didn't have to do anything. I had scans instantly. I could share them and do whatever I wanted with them. When I wanted to learn scanning and do more things on my own, I still had the negatives that they developed that I could go back to. So back then, my hybrid workflow was me shooting the film, sending it off, and having all the post work done for me, essentially. Then I moved to shooting it all myself, sending it off, and then scanning it myself. Then I got to the point where I was shooting, developing, and scanning, which is essentially the hybrid system you see a lot of online photographers do, especially black and white photographers. Shoot, develop, and scan. Earlier this year, I started to add darkroom prints to my workflow. Theoretically, although I still do a hybrid system where I shoot, develop, and scan them into digital files, I also print some of them in the darkroom, so I have a complete analog workflow with select photos. There's no right or wrong way to go about workflow. You could shoot and always send your stuff developed and never have to worry about buying a scanner, or you could get to the point where you're doing it all yourself. And don't think because you're not developing or you're not processing or you're not scanning that you're not a film photographer. It's just another cool capture medium of choice. You also don't have to shoot color or black and white or just one or the other. You can mix it up too. You can mix up brand names of films. You can shoot only one brand name of film, only one style of film. There's no right or wrong way. The part of the fun about this is experimenting and trying different things. Number 9, remember it can be and most likely will be frustrating at times, but very rewarding. So film photography is the polar opposite of what we've been spoiled with digital. And this all may seem obvious. It's easy to take for granted the instant gratification that digital photography gives us. And film photography forces you, at the very least, to take your time and to shoot without knowing exactly what your image is going to look like until you get it processed. So there's many opportunities for frustration to happen, but holding the developed negative in your hand or seeing that printed photo with that cool grain or the cool look that you were going for makes it all worth it. One of the overarching themes to this whole thing is pacing yourself learning all of this. If you jump in and try to buy a camera and shoot and process and develop and do all this stuff on your own right away, you introduce even more opportunities for frustration to happen. Be patient. Chip away at it, learn one process at a time, and you'll minimize how frustrated you'll get. And number 10 is for everyone who's watching this who can't get into film photography for whatever reason, whether that's money, accessibility to cameras, accessibility to film, whatever. You can apply some of the benefits of shooting analog to your digital photography or the photography on your smartphone. Shooting film forces a certain amount of discipline on you, whether you like it or not. You don't have a screen on the back showing your images. You don't have a limited amount of shots on a roll. These limitations force you to make certain creative decisions. So if you can't shoot film and you're shooting with your smartphone or DSLR or mirrorless camera, you can self-impose some of these limitations and get some of the creative benefits of shooting film. So give creative challenges to yourself. Say, I'm gonna go out and only shoot 20 shots today. I'm gonna shoot a shot and not look at the screen or turn off the screen or cover the screen. Those limitations often fuel creativity. That's one of the creative environments you can create regardless of what format you're shooting on. And the other benefits of film is the look and the aesthetic and the vibe of it, which now you can emulate. If all you have is a smartphone or DSLR or a mirrorless camera, you can find apps that emulate grain or the black and white contrasty look of some of the film stocks that we use. So if you can't shoot film, find ways to emulate the process and the look and still get a result that you're happy with at the very end. So if you just started shooting film, or you found this video and are thinking about shooting film, let me know and leave a comment below telling me which camera you ended up getting and what you're going to start shooting. And if you're undecided about film cameras, check out some of my other videos about the EOS film camera lineup, which has a handful of great affordable choices for the beginner. Thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, please subscribe and let me know some of the stuff you're going to be shooting. Talk to you soon.